Thank you so much for joining us from different continents and time zones to talk about the Panama Canal services, our short-term challenges, long-term solutions, as well as the measures that we've taken to face the challenges that worldwide and at the Panama Canal. Today we have the Administrator of the Panama Canal, Ricaurte Vásquez, and Deputy Administrator Illya Espino de Marotta will join us to take us through this agenda. And at the end, we'll have a period for question and answers. Any questions that we are not able to answer today because of time constraints, we will provide within 1 week. And with you, Dr. Ricaurte Vásquez.
The world you're watching us is just a reflection on the fact that the Panama Canal serves the world. And we are living through challenging times, not only because of weather conditions, which is one of the elements that mostly affects the Panama Canal, but there is conflict, there is confrontation, and there is instability in many parts of the world that are currently affecting world trade and international maritime services. Here at the Panama Canal, for the last 8 to 10 months, we have been aware and we have shared with you, all of our customers, the situation about the Panama Canal, its water conditions, the lake levels, and the capacity the canal can provide for transiting international trade through its water and channels. This situation has been extremely severe. This is the first time that we had to introduce traffic restrictions. In the past, due to seasonality, we have used draft restrictions in order to accommodate cargoes and volumes through the Panama Canal. But this time, the situation has been so extreme that the El Niño phenomenon has taken up to a level that is unprecedented as far as absence of rain and the fact that the Panama Canal operates on fresh water, which is a major disadvantage compared to other water routes. We have taken every single step that in operations, and Illya will share with you some of the things that we have been doing recently and the things we would like to do in the next few months. And we have been following water rainfall and lake levels, and we have posted that on a daily basis. We follow it every single minute of the day in order to make sure that for whatever capacity water allows to operate with, we will share that capacity with the world in order to maximize the volume of cargo that transits the Panama Canal. And we satisfy not only our customers, but our customers' customers. Aside from these challenges, there have been several other issues that have been affecting international trade. One of which, for example, is the increase in interest rates. Interest rates has affected not only the value of merchandise, but the carrying cost of inventories. So it is more pressing nowadays for cargoes to arrive on time in order to reduce excessive storage, excessive inventories, and incremental costs associated with it due to higher prices on one side and higher interest costs. Interest rates also affect chartering rates on vessels. At the time where a container moving from Asia to the East Coast of the United States has fallen in price to a historical normal, away from the high levels that we observed during COVID. As we come out from COVID and the world expected a recession, these things did not materialize, and the world is moving into a soft landing. But in spite of the economic condition of the world, the demands remain very high for traffic, international trade, and then you have increased financial costs associated with that pushes inflation and incremental costs higher and higher when rates are fixed at a historical level. There is another element that has been affecting international trade as well, is energy prices. Fuel prices have increased significantly. So for shippers, it becomes very important to use the shortest route in order to assure the best service in the shortest time at the minimal cost. These elements are working against international trade in general, because as we move cargoes from one origin to a different destination, the incremental cost associated with it has pushed some inflation. The Panama Canal, as a part of the international transportation system, has reduced its capacity due to the absence of rainfall. That has led to several situations which are very complicated, but impact also the cost of transit in the Panama Canal. In order to allocate the few slots that are available and the reduced capacity that we can operate with, we have introduced a different auction systems that makes market prices determine what the cost of transit in the Panama Canal will cost. This has created a reaction in general from the industry, assuming that the cost associated with transiting the Panama Canal when available is extremely high. I'd like to point out two things about this issue. One, there is no better way to allocate supply than using market forces and prices. And the price is eventually determined by customers. And the customers have a value relationship to that price. And they make the final decision in taking the slot at the given auction price or choosing an alternative route to move the cargoes. It's not the most efficient, I have to say, but it refuels the issues about cost of landing merchandise at destination. It is not something that the Panama Canal is doing on purpose in order to max out revenues. And I want to point out that this very clear. The Panama Canal has no intention whatsoever to maximize revenues through the auction system, but it finds that there is no other way better than the market price system to allocate these resources when they are so scarce. The other element that has been under questioning is the way we allocate the slots and the reservations alongside. And we have been making adjustments with every advisory to shipping that we have issued in order to accommodate the maximum volume of traffic that we can operate with the current levels of water in our lakes. That situation, we expect that will lapse probably with the start of the rainy season come April, May next year. We did an extreme case and we put the system to a test, making a stress condition as a result of the driest October. In Panama, October is the rain that has most of the rainfall that uses the Panama Canal. Being October the driest October in history led us to take extreme restrictions in order to reduce the number of traffic to overcome the official dry season that began December the 2nd. We assume at that moment, in the late part of October, that November precipitation was to be similar than that of October. Fortunately, November precipitation and rainfall was much better than we anticipated. And as a consequence, we have allowed for a larger number of transits to be scheduled for the months of January and February till conditions prevail. We continue to trace and monitor rainfall and lake levels in order to assure that we have enough water to allow 44 feet of draft that serves about 70% of the transit that use the Panama Canal. To us, market satisfaction and customer satisfaction is critical in order to handle the expectations that the shipping lines have about transiting the Panama Canal at the right time, at the right cost. This is not an easy target, and it's getting further complicated by conflict in the Middle East. The Middle East creates a new situation that no one foresaw. This situation has included attacks to some of the vessels going through transit to the Suez Canal. In a world as today with high inflation and higher costs, any disruption at Suez will further complicate the situation in global trade and further create worse expectations on the use of the Panama Canal and the limitations that we impose to international trade due to the lack of water. We expect that the situation in the Middle East is resolved and somehow the transit to the Suez Canal remains flawless, and we continue to serve the world within our respective capacities. Otherwise, shipping lines would like to consider the possibilities of longer route. And by doing that, that will lead to additional cost increases that will further expand the spread of inflation around international trade. On a more positive note, we have submitted our proposal to enhance for long-term the watershed of the Panama Canal. With a better definition of the Panama Canal watershed, we expect to start as soon as possible, as soon as we complete final designs, the construction of a new reservoir, which will provide more reliability to water resources here in Panama to supply the Panama Canal and water consumption for the population of the country. To us, this is of paramount importance. We had discussions with the government as how to handle this condition in the best manner with full consideration on the social economical claims of the population that will be affected by such reservoir. To us, the Panama Canal remains competitive and has to remain reliable to international trade. And that reliability is highly predicated on the basis of having a significant amount of water available at all times. And this reservoir, which is long overdue, I have to say, because it was originally proposed with the Panama Canal expansion, now it becomes more urgent, and we have to use at its fullest the Panama Canal capacity to assure reliability and to meet customers' expectations. We expect that in the next few years, we will allocate about $1.5 billion just to the resolution of the water problem. And also looking into other alternatives and challenges that we are facing around the world, we will continue to support a diversified canal in order to provide additional services through the Panama Canal and its complementary services in order to make sure that this is the preferred route for international trade. More than the Panama Canal, we believe that the Panama route is critical to international trade. And we will make every significant investment that will be required in order to assure that it will remain cost-efficient, effective, and reliable for international commerce. Here, I complete my first remarks, and I will be open to any questions. Illya?
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'll speak briefly about some of the measures we have taken. I'll talk a little bit also about the kind of year we're having and how that has impacted us in our traditional ways that we used to operate. We definitely listen to the industry. We're open to listen to our clients and our customers, and I'll show you all the measurements that we have been taking to make it less painful, let's say, for everybody, and try to provide a great service to our customers. We are compromised with sustainability, and we know that the Panama Canal route is a green route. So we definitely want to maintain our reliability for the future. So we're going through a difficult hurdle, but we are trying to make it the best possible way during these trying moments. So I have a small presentation that I will share with you about a little bit about our execution going on right now. As you can see, we do have less number of transits and a little bit less tonnage due to the reduction on transits. This is the first time we ever had to reduce transits because we had the second driest year in the history of the Panama Canal. I want to say that the driest year was in 1997, when the Panama Canal was not expanded yet. Even in 1997, we actually have to give draft restrictions to the Panamax locks. So as you can imagine, in 2023, things become a little bit more difficult. So you can see here the tonnage and the number of transits and how 2023 is being impacted compared to our fiscal years of 2022, 2024 forecasted, and 23. Here, the most important curves are the two bottom curves. The blue curve is the 2009 year water available for us to operate the canal and also provide potable water for the population. But 55% of the population of the country consumes water from Alajuela and Gatun lakes. So as you can see, 2019, which is the light blue curve, it was higher than we are right now. So obviously 2023 has been a very, very dry year. And that's what we've been battling with. You can see how the other years between 2020 to 2022, there was plenty of rainfall. So the canal expanded, the expanded canal has been operating since 2016. We did have a dry year in 2016, but the canal inaugurated in June. Therefore, rainy season was starting to come in. We did give draft restrictions in 2016 to 43 foot, and we were able to give a good service the following years with ample rain. This year, we are doing something a little bit different. We're trying not to drop to 43-foot draft, but maintain a 44-foot draft, like Dr. Vásquez said. It's still about 70% of our clients a draft they use. We know some are being impacted, but we're trying to do our best to minimize those impacts. Here you can see that even December is our third December driest in the history of the Panama Canal, being this year the second driest year in our history. So some of the measures we have taken. In 2019, we started with the crossfield, something we have never done, which is basically imitating how we use the water-saving basins in the expanded canal. So draft restriction is something the industry knows about it. Every dry season between January and May, we give draft restrictions to vessels. Sometimes we can afford to stay up to 45 or 46, depending on how rainy the rainy season was. So this year we went down to 44, trying to maintain 44, but we had to reduce the number of transits. We started crossfield in 2019, something we have experimented before, so we are implementing that this year. Definitely using the water-saving basins on the Neo-Panamax to the most extent possible, maintaining a good water quality for drinking water. We're also using short chambers whenever vessel length permit. That allows us to save water. These are all water-saving measures. We are also minimizing the directions, alternating directions on the transits between northbound and southbound to maximize the cross-filling activities. We're also monitoring and controlling all of our water leaks in valves and gates. As you know, the canal is over 100 years old, so that's something that keeps us busy all the time. We are maximizing the use of tandems. We are suspending any special lockages, and we only allow them on for canal convenience when needed. We're also suspending hydraulic assistance during lockages, which also increases the amount of water consumption. And we are maintaining Miraflores Lake at a maximum operating limit of 55 feet. And one of the projects that is brand new is we're doing a two-phase right now, because we haven't awarded the contract that's going to relocate the water, the potable water plant in Miraflores water intake, raw water intake is going to be relocated to midpoint in the canal in Gamboa. That will allow us to use a lot more efficiently the water-saving basins in the Neo-Panamax locks. Meanwhile, we're doing a test trial with a shorter relocation with our dredge pipeline to be able to this summer have a better utilization of the water-saving basins, therefore impacting a little bit less the usage of water. I'm going to go very briefly through these. This is just to show you that we do listen to the industry. We do want to make our service the most efficient possible. So we have issued quite a few number of advisories, rather frequently compared to what we normally do. But to us, it's important to notify the industry because every time we're trying to improve on something, we need to notify you of what's coming, what's the horizon for the next 30, 60, or 90 days. So we have issued a lot of new advisories trying to accommodate shipping, listening to our clients. So like Dr. Vásquez said, October was the driest October ever, and we were forecasting to give the industry ample notice on what was coming, that we would probably reduce to 18 transits per day in the month of February. Luckily, there was a little bit more rain, and we are able to up that to 24, but we reduced from 32 to 30 to then down to 22, 20. But the latest advisory, and I want to focus on the latest one because this is already superseded by the latest one, is that we are changing a little bit our rules. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention was also we adjusted the freshwater fee. So the clients can get a 50% reduction on the flexible part, since the lake is being maintained between 82 and 79 is the range we're using for the freshwater fee. So that was another action we took to provide a better service. So I'll say the biggest change is that we are going to limit the amount of slots each shipper can have per day, to make sure that everybody gets a fair chance on transit the Panama Canal. We have changed some of the periods. This is a little bit more technical. Special period continues as always. Period 1 continues as always with the full container vessels. Then period 2A, once we have the priority of the container vessel, then we will have LNGs, LPGs, and car carriers, ro-ro, equal opportunity to be able to book a slot. And then in period 2A, any slots that are not used within the period will go to the next period to reach the 24 vessels. There's also, of course, we'll have the auctions for the segments that that are not very high in the customer ranking. The customer ranking will continue to be the tiebreaker. We have 6 different tiebreakers depending on the situation. We go in descending order. Number 1 will be the customer ranking. In the Panama slots, we're using something a little bit different too. We will allow vessels to book on a certain day of the week, but they cannot book for the next day of the week, but they can go on the 3rd day of the week. This will give also a more level playing field for all of our clients. For us, it's important that everybody gets an opportunity to transit the canal. This is a period of time that we're going with scarcity, so we're trying to make it the less painful for everybody. We have an ample market segments, and we want everybody to be able to transit the canal in a good way. Something that is also very important for us is to maintain the information available to everybody. So in our webpage, you can see all of our advisories. You can verify the water levels, the booking, what's available, the auctions. So this provides you with all of the links to all of the advisories that we have. And also we provide online the queue. What is the queue like? The booked vessels, the non-booked vessels, and from the non-booked vessels, what's the situation on the waiting days by direction, if it's northbound, southbound, and we try to also segregate it in supers, regulars, and neo-Panamax. So we're always open to listen to suggestions. A lot of these advisors have been after listening to the industry and trying to make it good for everybody. Like I said, the canal is compromised with sustainability. We want to continue to be a very important route. We have over 170 countries that use our canal, and we will make sure to continue that way. We are also doing 2 experimental projects this year with the cloud seeding. So we're always in the search of new technologies to be able to confront what's coming in the future. As we can see, this dry year has been very, very complicated, not only for the canal and for Panama, but for many countries in South America, North America, and Europe. So we definitely have to maintain in our long-term strategy, water as the #1 priority, like Dr. Vásquez mentioned earlier. So with that, I complete my operational presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Administrator. Thank you, Deputy Administrator, for giving us an update and more information on the Panama Canal status. This session is for all of you maritime associations so that you can gather this information and also distribute it to all your members. So we encourage you to send us your questions through the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, questions or comments that you need to be answered, anything that is not clear. This session is especially for you. We want to make sure we keep those channels of communication open and that you are always able to give us your comments and also clear any doubts that you may have. So we'll start now with the first question, and it is for the administrator. What are the canal's expectations for its operations and performance after February and for fiscal year 2024?
Fiscal year 2024 is going to be extremely challenging. The number of transits, for example, has been reduced to about 700 transits per month. The regular transiting schedule is about 1,000 and change. So it's about 30% reduction on the number of transits. What we are urging shipping companies is to try to consolidate among themselves the largest volume of cargo and to increase payload factor on the vessel in order to make sure that the total volume of cargo that goes through the Panama Canal per unit of water is maximized. We are trying to optimize the use of water, and optimizing the use of water requires also some contributions from the shipping companies in order to bring the largest vessel, fully loaded or as loaded as possible, depending on draft. And by doing that, we maximize the volume that we jointly provide our common customers. What we believe is that come May of next year, 2024, the rainy season will restart. And that is the time horizon that we have been working for. Everything we do as far as the scheduling, reduction of transit, adjusting advisories, regulations, allocation of slots, and everything else that we do to manage capacity is geared towards operating the canal throughout the dry season, assuming that the dry season is not going to be a repeat of what happened this year, 2023. In a normal year, by the month of April, we should have the first showers. And when the rainfall restarts, then we will normalize our operation depending on the actual precipitation we receive. One point which is very, very important. We are managing water to the extreme. We have improved our operations, as Illya mentioned, by cross-filling, by using at the fullest the water-saving basins, regulating salinity in the lake. Every variable has been given consideration, and we have managed accordingly. We have used new technologies. We are using new ways of resolving water utilization, filling up maintenance and avoiding leakages in our systems. In order to max out the amount of water, we have to say that the standard for the Panama Canal has been to use about, we have reduced the amount of water that we use in order to transit a Panamax vessel in somewhere between 15 to 20%. And we are trying to use water to a similar level and reduce it and improve the efficiency of water utilization in the Neo-Panamax locks. We are scheduling vessels in such a way that we have a balanced northbound, southbound schedule, so we can reduce saltwater intrusion in the lake system. So every conceivable analytical tool has been used in order to max out water utilization. But we need some cooperation from the industry as well. We know that there are alliances. We know that you can share spaces in your fleet, in as much as you can do that and consolidate. And that's the reason why we provide information with such advanced notice, in order for the shipping companies to allocate their resources in the best way in order to serve their clients, and by doing so, maxing out the capacity that they can provide using the Panama Canal. On top of that, there are some alternatives, especially for container traffic, to some limitations through the Isthmus of Panama, because there is an intermodal system already in operation. But as far as the Panama Canal is concerned, our interest will be to provide as much information so you can do the best scheduling possible. You can maximize the amount of cargo that you can put through the Panama Canal and give it to the final destination. We have taken interest in the seasonality of products and the direction of cargoes, and also the volumes and destinations where these cargoes are handled to. The idea is to have very joint cooperation, and every advisory has been a reaction to what the shipping lines require in order to better service under these extreme circumstances. One point that is very important to all, the Panama Canal is a public service, and being a public service, we have to provide uniform service to of our customers. We have been in the past probably biased towards container cargo because we designed the Panama Canal expansion for container shipping. But that capacity is also shared with other cargoes. So we have to balance out, and the Panama Canal cannot take a position to dictate which one goes first, which one goes second. There have been rules in force for decades that we are trying to adjust, reacting to requests from the industry to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to transit the Panama Canal. We cannot be in any way a determinant of preference or provide any advantage to any particular cargo or any particular shipper. By doing that, it will subject the Panama Canal to potential liabilities that is not the purpose of a public service. And this has to be very well understood by the industry. That's why we listen, that's why we share information, and that's why we try to remain neutral in providing services to all who calls for it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vásquez, for clarifying the reasoning behind the changes in the reservation system. The next question we have is for Deputy Administrator Illya Espino de Marotta. After February, would the canal consider implementing further restrictions?
It will all depend. I mean, we're in the lookout. This is an everyday, we monitor everything. We monitor the water usage, the queue, the water quality. So we don't discard that something could be modified after February, depending on how we can progress. Like we had some rains yesterday, that was good, that's a plus. So like I said, this is a changing situation. Definitely when October, when we forecasted 18 transits in February, we have been able to change that to 24, but that doesn't discard that we could go down to 20 or 22 or maybe 18 in March or April. Hopefully by May, we will start a full rainy season and things can start picking up, but we will definitely notify the industry at least with 30 days prior to implement any changes, whether if it's to improve or to be a little bit more restrictive. So be assured that we will always communicate with you. We will always issue our advisories. We also have customer meetings locally where the shipping agents can talk to us. We have it every 3 months. We just had one recently, and if we need to have a special one, we will call for a special one if there's any changes. Right now, we are forecasting 24 in February, but yes, it could change. And like I mentioned before, in 2016, we did give a 43-foot draft restriction. So depending on, we always analyze what is the least damaging to the industry at a specific point in time. So it could be either a decreasing number of transits or it could be a decrease in draft, which is, I think, our last action that we would take if needed. But so far, we're looking a little bit better than we did in October. So that gives us a positive outlook.
Thank you, Deputy Administrator. This is a question for Dr. Vásquez. What is the Panama Canal vision for the upcoming future? Do you foresee another impact such as this one before long-term solutions are in place?
That is very unpredictable, but we have to stand ready, and lessons learned from this crisis are going to be instrumental in providing solutions to the next one when it shows. We know that the long-term solution will be to create new reservoirs and new sources of water. What we have learned from this situation is that we could improve with a reduced number of transit, or the operation itself, reduce the amount of water we can use for operation. Two elements that are very important in the way we have handled the current crisis. One, as Illya mentioned, we have used cross-filling. So we have used the experience of the Neo-Panamax locks and the Panamax locks in the way we manage water and cross-filling sideways instead of going down the river. That has led us to significant savings in operations. So we will continue to use that as much as possible. That impacts scheduling. So scheduling has to be adjusted in order to make sure that we can use those operational tools to transit vessels through the Panama Canal. That is one. The second one is that we have a better understanding on saltwater intrusion after the years that we have used the Neo-Panamax locks, and we have reduced the use of the water-saving basins when we have excessive rainfall, and we have used it more efficiently when we have a lot less rainfall. Saltwater intrusion is a matter of the lake level. You know, if we have the same amount of saltwater intrusion to the lake at a depressed lake, it will concentrate more salinity. Where the salinity is an issue, when we treat water for human consumption. So instead of addressing not only the amount of salinity on the lake, what we're gonna be doing is addressing salinity at the water treatment plants. So we will focus more into where the most severe impact of salinity impacts, and instead of just trying to use that in order to preserve the overall water salinity on the lake. That salinity is going to fluctuate depending on water rainfall. And it's a matter of management salinity instead of eliminating salinity. It's a significant change of scope in the way we look at something that has been ever present since the Panama Canal began operations in 1914. Saltwater intrusion has always been something that the Panama Canal had to handle. It's more severe when you have extreme drought. It's not relevant when you have surplus water and you wash out the lake. So this is a new way of managing some of the variables that we used to operate. So all these lessons learned from cloud seeding, new hydrometeorological information, and trying to link hydromet with operations, making sure that the water levels allow for X number of transits, which transit we will use, how we can do the scheduling, is an all integrated system that now with more analytics and data, we are using technology in order to make it more efficient. That will not replace the need for infrastructure, for water storage, and to accumulate water for the dry years. So we have to do both. And even if we can do some ancillary services that will provide better service through the Panama Canal, we will do so. I did not fully answer the question that was posed before, and what will be the financial results on the Panama Canal. I think that overall revenues from tolls are going to decline, for not only from the budget level that we presented and was approved, that included a reduction from the trend of about $200 million. There is a possibility that that amount is going to come to about 500 to 700 million below the estimate that we had for this year. We know that it is complicated, but we share that information with the authorities. So the expectations of Panama Canal contributions to the Treasury of Panama are adjusted in their budget as well, because this is a situation that is unprecedented and is something that is beyond the control. As we mentioned before, the canal is committed to sustainability. So once we overcome this crisis, we will be talking to the industry also on new technologies, on new sustainability conditions, and making even greener the Panama route for international trade.
Thank you, Dr. Vásquez. New technology, research and development, engineering, everything in order to maintain sustainability of the Panama Canal and worldwide. These are measures that everybody needs to be taking so that we can conserve water and our environment. We have a question now for Deputy Administrator from Intertanko. Intertanko members reported increased number of contact incidents when entering locks of the new Panama Canal. These incidents, normally not severe and keeping the vessel seaworthy, often lead to hull indentations and consequently condition of class or significant memorandum imposed by class to the vessel status. It is difficult for tanker owners to trade a vessel with a condition of class, especially those committed to oil major spots and time charter business. Inappropriate fendering of the locks was suggested as one of the contributory causes. Do you share the view that the number of small contact incidents has increased? And is there anything that the Panama Canal can do to minimize likelihood of hull indentations in the locks?
We have, since we operate at the fendering issue is only in the Neo-Panamax locks. And since we inaugurated the expanded canal, we had experimented with 7 different prototypes of fenders. And we still continue. We did an experimental floating fenders, which seemed to function rather well. And we are not only changing them to floating fenders, but we're also including an additional fender to the upper edge of the chambers, which is where most incidents can occur when the floating fenders collapse due to touch-up. So right now, we have received a prototype of a new floating fender. We have already one on the lower chamber in Coco Lee locks. We are going to put now one in the upper chamber of Coco Lee locks and test it for about 3 or 4 months. We'll replace all that. But we have enhanced our fendering replacement system. We don't see any increase significant from the beginning. On the contrary, we see how the trend has gone down on the accidents. And like we're learning a lot of water savings, we're learning a lot about the fendering replacement mechanism and system. So with the new system of floating fenders, we see that they're a lot more efficient. We are going to eventually replace all of them. But like I said, we monitor 7 different prototypes of the original fenders. Now with the floating fenders, we're testing 2 different systems, and we will definitely implement one of them, in addition to the upper edge of the Neo-Panamax locks. The fendering issue is not an issue in the Panamax locks. We do not use fenders in the Panamax locks because we have the locomotives to position the vessels in the center of the chamber. We do have fendering in the approaches. We have not seen an increase. Like I said, it's maintained in the last 3 years, pretty much standard, the number of scrapes, but we have seen a decline from when we first opened the canal in 2016, the expanded canal. But we'll definitely, that's something that is on top priority for the canal, the fendering system in the Neo-Panamax locks.
For efficiency purposes and to stay with you, Illya, and then I'll transfer the other questions to the administrator. These are 2 short questions. Can clients that book a reservation expect the same high level of reliability that the canal has customarily delivered? And can you clarify procedure for cruise lines?
Yes, absolutely. We guarantee that if you have a booking, you will transit within 18 hours of your book date. That hasn't changed. We're very responsible in that sense. So that promise to our clients has not been modified. It stands the same. Cruise liners also, they have their special period with 766 days, I believe, to have their booking. So for cruise liners, let's say things have not changed, and for every booked vessel, things have not changed. When it's an auction slot, the promise of transit, I believe it's a little bit more. I don't know if it's 24 or 36 hours. I owe you that accuracy, but I'm sure if you look in our advisories, it will be there. But for a booked vessel, for a standard booking slot, is 18 hours transit time. So that hasn't changed.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. Dr. Vásquez, ship companies asked for the Panama Canal to suspend the ranking system. As we understood it, has not been suspended, but limited in order to obtain a reservation slot. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have not suspended the ranking system because it's part of the regulations that we have in place through many decades. There are too many changes that we cannot introduce. We cannot introduce that many changes at once. The first thing we try to do is to assure that everyone has a chance to transit the Panama Canal. The ranking system is a self-fulfilling prophecy because the more you transit, because you have a higher ranking, the more capacity you have to control the number of slots you can earn. The Panama Canal, once again, I'd like to stress this issue. The Panama Canal is a public service, and we cannot bias in favor of anyone. And the ranking system somehow, it was originally designed for one specific purpose, and through the years has been modified in a way that is a pervasive element in the way we allocate slots, especially when the number of slots had been reduced 30, 40%. So when we had 36 slots, probably it was not critical. But even then, when we had our conversations about the new toll system, the ranking system came over and over from our customers that it was a system that was not fair to everyone that wanted to use the Panama Canal. We were in a process of reviewing the ranking system in order to make it more transparent and probably to simplify it. And then came the El Nino, and then we have to allocate the slot. And the issue here is the responsibility upon the canal on selecting who transits. We need to have one criteria, which is neutral and independent, although has been traditionally used, probably is not the best system that we can use at this moment, but it's the system we have. And we have been trying to modify it in order to make sure that we give an opportunity to every customer to transit the Panama Canal. There are some other measures that we have been discussing with shipping companies in order to expand the structure of allocating slots, probably looking into multiple days, for example, and other alternatives. But this is work in progress. The same way and with the same intensity and commitment that we work in technology, engineering, data analysis in order to assure that we can provide a service, we are putting an effort in order to understand the trends every day of the week, which way, which destination, which direction to make sure that we can get the best combination of transit that maximize the use of the canal for most of our customers and we have the greatest volume of cargo moving through the Panama Canal. So we expect that in the months to come, once we overcome this critical issue of rainfall, we will go back to the industry and have conversation about how to improve the allocation of bookings and the allocation of slots that will go into tender.
Thank you, Dr. Vásquez. And another question for our administrator is, has the Panamanian government already taken a decision to develop the Reservoir project, Rio Indio, and what is the timeline?
The government of Panama has not approved the legislation that authorizes the construction of Rio Indio yet. But we have continuous conversation with the authorities in order to get it approved sometime in the next 12 months, either by the existing administration, and we will have conversations with the new candidates for the new government that comes to office July 1st. This is of paramount priority for the country, not just for the Panama Canal. And we acknowledge that once the political crisis that we were involved in the last couple of months cease out somewhat, there will be the serenity and the commitment from the authorities and the general public to discuss this issue. The Panama Canal is willing to provide engineering solutions to the water consumption problem and to the water supply to the Panama Canal. We have the know-how, we have the engineering, and we have the proven record that we can do significant, massive projects and do it on time and within budget. So I think that the best gamble and the best bet that the country can have is to trust the Panama Canal to do these projects and to do them well. I think that the general public acknowledges that. And we believe that now in a more subdued environment with less political tensions, we could have that conversation. And we have started that conversation even yesterday when we presented the payment of surpluses to the government, that must be a priority. The government has proposed other alternatives as well, and we will listen to them and we analyze them. But we have to come to terms in something that is critical, not only for the Panama Canal, but for Panama as a whole. And Panamanians understand that that is the case. So in a more serene environment, as we are right now, and probably before we start up the heat up of the discussions of the political elections for president and Congress, we will have a window of opportunity to have that conversation with all the relevant players in Panama to make sure that is in the top of the agenda items for this government, for the remainder of this administration, or for very early into the next administration. We feel very positive that given the experience of what this El Nino had proven, that now we have an economic value of shortage of water, and it's real and people can relate to that. Some of the lessons learned is the importance of water for the Panama Canal operation and for the livelihood of Panamanians as a whole.
Thank you, Dr. Vásquez. One last question for you before we move on. Panama also has a railroad and a highway that serves as a complement to the waterway. How is that working during this crisis?
It has worked to some capacity. There are several bottlenecks that we have to look at. When we had the political turmoil in Panama, even connectivity throughout the Isthmus of Panama was compromised. That's one issue. Second, the overall transferability of cargoes through the Isthmus of Panama, either road or rail, depends on how many containers you can unload or reload at the terminal ports. So when you look at it as a system, probably the roads and the railroad has spare capacity. But when you look at it in a systemic way, probably the bottlenecks are in the capacity that the ports have in order to unload and reload containers. They are working on that. Some companies did extensive use of that to some limited success, but at least it provided an alternative to sailing through the Panama Canal. It is an alternative that is available. It could be improved. We are talking in conversations with the private sector here in Panama in order to assure that that capacity is used at its fullest. And that's an option that Panama offers, particularly to container traffic, that has to be used and has to be used at its capacity to complement the Panama Canal operation.
Thank you so much. For this part of the session, we have final comments from the Deputy Administrator and then final comments from the Administrator. If there are any questions that we have left over or any questions you didn't think of today, you can always write to us and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Deputy Administrator Illya Espino de Marotta.
Well, rest assured that we will always listen to our clients. The Panama Canal is committed to our reliability, a good service, be always of service to world trade. We're always doing our best to fulfill that role. So please rest assured that we're always here to listen and to make things better, and we will overcome this hurdle. We have long-term programs in place. We are improving as we go along. So we are here for you. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Dr. Vásquez.
Yeah, the Panama Canal, no doubt, is a cornerstone of international trade, especially from Asia to the East Coast of the United States. But we serve many customers, we have served many routes, we serve 170 plus countries. We know and we have been in this role for more than 500 years. From the Spanish Conquista to today has been a transformation of technology used for international trade. We know this business. We have a track record of over a century serving the world through the waterway, and we will continue to do so. No matter how difficult the times, no matter how high the challenges, we always have met these challenges successfully, jointly listening, working together. And this time again, we will work together. We will come out from this short-term crisis, and we will get to a new plateau of service, quality, and reliability, managing expectations with a dialogue, a permanent dialogue with our customers. And by doing so, we will better serve international trade, the world, and serve Panama. Thank you so much for sharing this morning with us.
With that, our session concludes today. We thank both the Administrator and the Deputy Administrator and all of you from wherever in the world you are and your different time zones. That you get back safely to your duties, and we will be available for any other questions via email. Have a great day.